Let's see if I can get a thumbnail where I'm not very obvious about what these books are. Maybe, potentially, let's see. Leave a comment down below if you think I was successful in hiding it. While you're down there, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any future uploads. We still have a best books of the year coming. I wish that I were like Gavin and I had some alcohol to sit through this video, but I just have some green juice, which is disgusting, but we bought it, we spent money, we're not going to be wasteful in this house. So not only are we going to talk about books that I thoroughly despised, but I'm drinking something that I also thoroughly despise. It's just bad times all around. There will be no disclaimers here. I'm just going to start off by saying that you saw the title, you saw the thumbnail, you know we're talking about books that I did not like. I think most of these, I've only talked about four books today. Three of them I think are pretty popular. One I think is probably a little more niche, but it's not going to stop me from talking about it. Didn't stop me from reading it, didn't stop me from making the video. If you've been following the channel, you will know that I am very generous with a 2-star. To me, a 2-star is an okay read, and so all of the books on this list, I believe, I gave 1 star to, or I did not rate them. Could be wrong. Feel free to go on my Goodreads. Link to that is also in the description. Pull the receipts on me. Call me a liar and a scammer. It'll be a great time. If you're here to leave some hate comments, feel free. Again, boost the engagement. I personally love to see it. But with all of that out of the way, let's talk about some books that I thought were garbage, shall we? I want to talk about the only book on this list that I don't have a video for, and that is Naomi Novik's A Deadly Education. Now, I talked about this in a wrap-up, but I read it in August while I was moving. I do have live Instagram reactions. They are just like a bunch of texts that I threw in my stories, but it's a highlight. You can go on my Instagram. Link to that is in the description if you want to know my thought process while reading this. After it came out, I read it as an ARC. I was blessed by the ARC gods. I got the ARC. I read the ARC while I was moving this summer. No, I was helping a friend move. That's when I read this one. And so I read part of it on a plane and then in various hotel rooms across the United States. And when I was reading it, I felt very uncomfortable. So A Deadly Education is a sort of dark academia fantasy, which I don't read a lot of dark academia. I think that The Secret History and A Deadly Education are like the two that were sold to me as dark academia. So that's my experience. And to me, dark academia has two key elements that you just have to accept if you're going to read a dark academia, and that is racism and somebody is going to die. A Deadly Education, I think, delivers on both of those. While I was reading it, I was very uncomfortable because Naomi Novik, to my knowledge, is a white woman. Our protagonist in A Deadly Education is half Welsh and half Indian. So her father died before she was really born, and she was raised by her mother in this commune. And even the scenes that weren't at the school, I know there's been a lot of talk about, you know, how dirty our main character is and how that's kind of like a racialized stereotype from people from India. Everyone in the book is dirty. Like, there are, I think, nitpicks about the book that didn't feel racist to me, but I did think that a lot of the book, even in context taken together, was just not the moment. I was very uncomfortable the entire time that I was reading it. It was also boring, because I think that what Naomi Novik does in terms to like build her world at the Scholomance, because again, the fantasy dark academia where there are no teachers, but everything at the school is trying to kill you, and so you just kind of go there, you learn your magic, and hopefully on your graduation day when you destroy, like, you have to like battle your way out of here, right? And I think that the book was painfully slow because the real plot is kind of the romance arc, which I wasn't here for. I just didn't like the book. I didn't like it. I thought the world building was clunky. There was a lot of description disguising itself as just info dumps. It was like just a series of info dumps and a lot of our protagonists going about their regular day in their regular way, and I just personally didn't see the appeal of it. And I think that what really bothered me is like it's the start to a series, and what they eventually do at the end of this one, I think kind of like makes the second book a little like I don't understand like how that's supposed to be exciting, because I don't want to spoil anything, but I do think it sets up for the next book to also be, I think, a little introspective. And I also think that just like the cast of characters, what they managed to do in this first book, I would be like, you'd have to raise the stakes so high. But to raise the stakes, I would also feel like you'd have to destroy the world that you built given what happened. It's just weird to me. So I'm personally not looking forward to I think it's called The Last Graduate. I don't know if it's going to go on past that. I don't know if this is a duology. But this book right here, it's probably been on screen the whole time if Monty wasn't lazy in editing. A Dead Education was not the moment. It was not good. So that's the one I did not have a standalone video for. The rest of these I do. And so I will try to remember to link those in the description and up on the cards. Now, these are also kind of in a particular order, here on out, pretty much. And my third worst book of the year is gonna go to a little book called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, or as we like to refer to her here on the channel, Miss Addie, by Victoria Schwab. Again, blessed by the ARC gods, they said, Monty, here you go. Read this. I read this for the 48-hour Bookoplathon hosted by Becca. I crammed this book into as many prompts as I could fit. It was the only book I read during that readathon. For the readathon. I also finished Anna K around the same time. But for the readathon, it was just Miss Addie. And Miss Addie was sold to me as like Victoria Schwab's passion book. Like, I think this is the book that Twitter was saying she spent like 7 years writing, and it was supposed to be a book about this girl who makes a deal with the devil. There's kind of this devil romance, and that's not what the book is. And I think even if it wasn't sold to me as like a deal with the devil, a devil romance, I still think that there was kind of potential there. Like, you know, you could still make a book about a girl who makes this deal with the devil interesting. Like, you could definitely do that. And somehow, for some reason, Victoria Schwab still said, nah, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm good. And so what we got was our main character, Addie LaRue, born in, like, ye olde France, just kind of existing. I thought that the plot, again, wasn't really there. It was kind of like a character study. I refer to it as more of a writing exercise than a book. I think that, Owl Crate and Illuma Crate, maybe it was fake. A bunch of the book boxes made special editions for this. I think it was like a Book of the Month one. Like, so many. Book of the Month might have been the best deal, because I think Book of the Month is like $15 a month, and for an adult hardcover, that's a steal. So, like, all these other places were, I think, scamming people out of their money, because it is a writing exercise. There is absolutely no character growth from the Addie that makes that deal with the devil to the Addie at the end of that book. I think that the character study, the moments that we spend with her, amount to literally nothing, because again, there is no arc, there is no growth, there is no development, and I'm just like, what was the point of literally any of this? Because even if you're a person who's like, oh, I just like really beautiful language in a book, and I do think that a lot of the sentences in The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, they were constructed in a way that they were pretty. Like, I do think that you could make some like really nice, I don't know, like phone backgrounds with like quotes from the book, but that's not worth the price of the book. Like, I would not, for a couple of sentences that are really nice, no. So, Addie, I think people were scammed. It's the one that I'm kind of the most upset with, because it was nothing. Like, the book didn't materialize. And to think that if my recollection of this is true, and like someone really spent that much of their life writing this book, I almost feel bad for them, because I think it was wasted. But also the book just doesn't make sense. I think the logic of the book is just based on petty, and from the king of petty, does not a book make. Okay, we are heading into the home stretch here. We have 2 books. I like to think that given my recent Twitter activity, the next 2 pretty obvious. I think that a lot of people, especially who joined the channel later this year, you know, from June on, I think that y'all would have guessed Addie. I think that maybe A Deadly Education, that might have been the surprise pick, but these last 2 I've been real quiet about, just a little bit. I kind of, like I said on Twitter, I got loud. And again, these are in order. So that would mean that my number 2 pick for the worst book that I read this year, it is Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare for most of 2020. This was the longest book that I had read. In 2019, I set out to catch up on the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I read everything up to Lord of Shadows, and then came this behemoth. Didn't fit. I have written an extensive review of this. It's the longest review I've ever written for a book. It broke the character limit on Goodreads. I also have a video discussion about Queen of Air and Darkness. For me, Queen of Air and Darkness isn't a terrible book in so much that, like, the execution is terrible. I know a lot of people complain about the moments that you spend in Thule here. None of that was for me. For me, what this is really just kind of like everything I hate about their artifices coming together. It's Julian, who I hate. It's the Blackthorn children, who I hate. It's like just like the repetitive story structure with the cohort, and how we continue to do this like weird supernatural racism in this world despite actual racial, like our real world racial identities also playing in. And it's just all very like, we've been here, done that with the Circle. Like, and I understand that you, like, we've been there, done that with the Ku Klux Klan, and now you got the Proud Boys. Like, these hate organizations are gonna spring up everywhere all the time. But it's like, we've already done that arc in the fictional world. Like, I don't need it back. And then what I really hate about the Dark Artifices is that there is no antagonist. The antagonist is the Parabatai bond, and I just thought that was, again, really stupid. I felt that as much praise as people give Cassandra Clare for writing, again, like, racially diverse characters and characters who aren't just straight, all of, like, the good things that happen to straight characters. Helen, Aileen continue to be fucked over here. Mark Anthony continues to be fucked over here. Alec and Magnus are like whole new characters. It's weird. So this book is just sort of emblematic of everything that I hate about the Dark Artifices, everything I hate about the Shadowhunter world, and I was most let down by this because I know people really love the Infernal Devices, and even the Infernal Devices I think I don't like them, but here we're no longer constrained by the events or the Mortal Instruments, you know? I think that I'm able to give a pass to her prequels because up until the Dark War, like, there hadn't been anything, like, world-ending, like, cataclysmic, the way that Valentine and Sebastian, whatever we're gonna call that man, were. So I can understand, like, those being, like, smaller level threats. And here, I found that the big threat wasn't big enough, and again, it was just about these het characters wanting to be hets and boring, and I don't like them, and I hated this book. I originally gave it 2 stars, but I had, after my little Twitter rant, I had to go back and drop this down because I absolutely despise this series. It is the worst Shadowhunter series. that I've read and completed. So I'm also gonna blame the Dark Artifices for why I'm so hesitant to pick up The Last Hours. They're like not really related, but in my head they definitely are. And so that brings us to the last book that I'm here to talk to you all about on this lovely day. And I think that for people who've been subscribed to the channel all year round, this is not going to be a surprising pick. To my knowledge, this is the longest review that I have ever filmed for a book. It is the most patient I have been with the book, and it is the book I think that while I hate significantly, I have tried, or at the time of reading it, I really tried to look at it objectively, and it's the book that I credit with Tor hating me, and that's because I thoroughly dragged Docile, a debut novel by K.M. Sparrow. I believe that K.M. Sparrow has like a short novella length, novelette maybe, short story thing that I think it won an award actually. But this book I just thought was god awful. And again, I tried to go into this very open-minded because it became quickly apparent that this just was not meant for me. For this, this is the one I thought was a little bit more of a niche audience. So Docile is a male science fiction novel that I would really just call glorified contemporary with speculative elements, but whatever. You know, Tor put the little spaceship on it, we can call it sci-fi. It's a near-ish future, or like an alternate dimension future, where debt in America has become to the point where the uber wealthy, the billionaires, trillionaires, quadrillionaire people can assume the debt of like regular folk like you or I, and that's kind of what's happening with our protagonist, Elisha, who is, you know, just a regular person from, you know, Maryland, who doesn't really, he's like 20, I think, so he's like, he went to school, but, you know, he never got to go to college because of college, like, his parents were in too much debt, they couldn't afford to send him to school, and I think he had to drop out of, like, high school or something, so he's not the most educated person. And then you have the other point of view character, Alex, who is an uber wealthy billionaire heir to the docile fortune. And in this world, there's a drug called docile that, you know, if you choose to sell your debt and become a docile, you may choose to do docile, because whoever buys your debt can do whatever they want to you. Now, a lot of people just do backbreaking labor, but as we follow here, it's just a series of sexual assaults. Like, it's nothing but rape. It's 500 pages. No, it's 487, 490 pages of sexual assault, and like maybe you could call it gray morality if you wanted to. Like, if you wanted to be very generous to the rapist, which a lot of people on Goodreads seem to want to do, you could call it gray morality. Sure, go for it. Whatever gets your rocks off. But he's a rapist. So our main character, Elisha, sells his debt, and he decides instead of going to debtor's prison, which is the other option, and in this world seems to be the better option, given that Elisha knows literally nobody who has had a good experience being a docile, because docile has had negative side effects on his mother, who like doesn't really remember anything. This book was pitched as having a polyamorous relationship, which one of the examples, these people are slaves, and the other example is Elisha's parents, who one of them is an ex-docile whose brain was fucked over by the docile, and her husband just can't divorce her because she literally cannot make decisions for herself. Like, she just cannot do that. So divorce is kind of out of the question because like she can't really consent to anything. So his father's really just having an affair with the neighbor lady, but we call it polyamory. The book is garbage. Please, like, I went into everything I hate about this book in that really long video that I made. There's also a Goodreads review. I'll leave that linked. Stitch made an excellent post that they continue to promote. This is, again, just god awful. The only reason I still have this is because it's an ARC, and so it's an ARC, and it's an ARC that nobody wants. So I don't want to throw it in the trash, but like, it was seriously god awful. One of the lowest points of the year, but I guess it's, at some point, like, it's nice because I did read it very early in the year, and a lot of these books I read early in the year. There were some disappointing reads, but I didn't want to mix them into a video that I was going to call, like, Your Faves Are Garbage, or whatever this video ended up being titled, but that's what I got for you. So, we got submissives, as everyone does. I'm not too upset about it. We'll see. Maybe I'll be more mad because I have more followers this year. Last year when I made my worst of 2019 video and I trashed people's favorites, nobody watched it. So I don't really know how this is going to go for me. But leave your least favorite reads of 2020 down in the comment section below. Make sure to drop this emoji in there with whatever you have to say. And I'll see you guys again soon with another video. But until then, and until next time, bye.